Anthropology is a field of study that has always been excused for being anthropocentric. The field, by its very nature, is thought to benefit from human-first points of view. However, Eduardo Kohn argues that anthropocentrism is a detrimental force and that has held back anthropology. For the benefit of the field, he instead argues for an anthropology of life. Herein, he argues for an ethnography beyond the human, one where all forms of life have emergent and embodied semiosis, where sign processes are inherent in all life, all selves, and are not restricted to humans. The article explores the interactions of humans and non-humans and how both these organisms can be equivalent due to the distinctive characteristics that make selves. These organisms understand their material world through the attribution of meaning to certain things, semiosis. Semiosis is always grounded in material processes and is by essence tied to organisms being able to interact and respond to their surroundings as any sort of stimulus. That is, every stimulus is a sign process, albeit embodied and non-symbolic, and every interaction where something stands to somebody for something in some respect or capacity would be alive. All of life functions within the dynamic where semiosis emerges from material and energetic processes. As a consequence, a self would not necessarily be human and would be all of life. All of life, animals, plants, microbes, etc., could be said to possess their own subjectivity where all beings see themselves as persons. Likewise, the way in which they would see other beings would depend on their ontological makeup or self-awareness of the observer and observed. In the case of the Amazonian Runa people, they see this point of view in a very interesting manner. Kohn experiences many cultural phenomena that display a similar point of view in this culture. Where in an organism there exists a consciousness of other beings, there exists a soul. The organ through which they perceive other beings would hold the soul properties, and the ingestion of this organ would hence benefit the consumer by attributing aspects of the organism's life to themselves. Then, the ingesting of another organism would require an ontological blurring where any self could become another. This interconnectivity allows organisms to be one another's selves because they all possess parts of each other. In Runa culture, one can become cosmologically autistic if one can no longer recognize the subjectivity of other animals or no longer recognize them as selves. However, one can never truly understand what they or other selves perceive truly. In Runa culture, a good example of this interspecies understanding can be their relationship with their dogs. Runa people, as masters of their dogs, are entangled with them in many ways and treat them as selves because of the understanding of this perception. First and foremost, Runa means person in Quechua, yet also means mutt in Spanish, connecting the people and their dogs linguistically. Historically, the dogs and the people are also interconnected with Western society because the dogs, due to malnourishment, cannot be bred and must be acquired from outsiders. Dogs serve to connect the Runa with themselves and with the outside world. As a consequence, Runa people teach their dogs in the same way they teach children and advise them to behave in certain ways. These dogs display human-like qualities and rituals, but serve humans in the same way, according to the Runa, to how jaguars serve the spirit masters of the animals in the forest. Similarly, the Runa can use their dogs to connect with the forest itself. They can do this through their dreams. Dreams are the representation of the world as it is superior to oneself. That is, humans dream how the forest really is in the spirit world. Henceforth, dogs would dream of human understanding of the forest but live in a state inferior to it. According to the Runa, humans are the masters of dogs and can, by understanding their language and barks to some extent, understand what will literally happen in the dog's life if they understand the metaphoric dreams they have of the human world. Nonetheless, Kohn argues that this extent of understanding of dog dreams is an interspecies pigeon where humans must exit their humanity to communicate to some extent with other organisms in neither of the organism's native languages. This semiotic technique allows for humans to understand their environment better through the subjectivity of their dogs. Kohn argues that this principle is extremely useful and can help better understand anthropological and ecological dynamics in their environments. In conclusion, Kohn argues for an anthropology where humans are not considered analytical objects within an exclusively human point of view. Likewise, biological reduction ignores all behavior that is distinctive to humans and assumes all we share with animals is our bodies. Kohn argues that anthropology should acknowledge lives as more than just bodies, as perceptions that cannot be disembodied. Looking at multinaturalist framework where culture is not the marker of difference eliminates an anthropogenic bias, and important elements become the interspecies communication organisms have with one another. The interactions these organisms display show their truly different and unequal positions in the world and the dynamic they live in. Interspecies pigeons and attempting to communicate between species without language exceeds what it is to be human and what it is to be animal. This interaction is the true nature of all selves and even of life itself. Understanding it is key to anthropological, ecological, and all biological subjects.